Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I want to talk about a few subjects regarding the Battlefield 1 beta, and starting off I'd like to address the fact that DICE has actually updated the beta with some balance changes. And one of those changes was made to basically an element of Conquest that was universally criticized by everybody I know who played it. And this was that Conquest games ended too soon. People weren't able to count their tickets up all the way, trains came in, and then the game ended. There just wasn't enough time to really make any sort of meaningful comebacks or change up your team's strategy once you realized that one strategy wasn't working. By the time you realized things weren't going your way, it was too late to make any sort of meaningful change. And this was with the 20-minute time limit. Now they've taken away the time limit completely and made it purely based on tickets. So games are lasting much closer to 30 minutes now, and basically they can't go too much further beyond that because once all the points are captured, you're going to have ticket gain for both teams at a certain rate. So basically the longest game you can possibly have is when both teams are very, very even. And this has really gone a long way to making Conquest feel like a better game mode. I won't say that it's balanced. In fact, I think there's a huge number of problems with the new system still, but having an increased time limit doesn't make it feel like it's sort of a forced game mode. It doesn't make it feel like it's being cut short every single time. Now, another major change that they made to the beta for the last day was a patch that unlocked all the weapons and gadgets for everyone. So people who are saying the game was imbalanced or that tanks were overpowered because not everybody had their AT rocket guns can now test out the game where everybody does have the AT rocket guns. And perhaps it's not enough time for people to get familiar with the game and how to counter tanks, but I of course had to test it out with the light tank, and again went on an insane kill spree, probably one of the best that I've gone on since the beta came out. I was, however, being attacked by AT rocket guns quite a bit. The problem with the AT rocket gun is that it is very difficult to take a shot, get up, move away, and take another shot without that tank killing you. It was a lot easier with rocket launchers back in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, but the AT rocket gun is much more difficult to use. So I did come much closer to death this time around, but I also got a crap ton of kills because once somebody engaged me with an AT rocket gun, I was usually able to kill them before they got the next shot off, or I was able to keep them from getting another shot off while they try to run away. This is also a very similar experience to what I had in the alpha. Now we do have official word. I believe Demise tweeted out that they are actually nerfing the light tank's armor. So that's going to be one way to try and separate the light tank from the other tanks in a more meaningful way, is that that tank will now be able to go down quicker. So maybe it'll even be disabled faster, meaning that if it gets caught out in the open or some assault players get some good AT rocket gun shots on it, it's not going to get away quite so easy. I think this is definitely a good change. I do still think that they should look into reducing the damage of the canister shot on them because it just has insane one-shot kill range that I think is just a little bit too overpowered. And again, it's how I get like 90% of my kills with the light tank. Now, of course, once the game comes out and people have been playing it for a couple weeks or even a couple of months, the player population is going to be a bit different. They're going to be higher rank on average. They're going to be more experienced on average. There's going to be a lot more players in the game that know how to properly counter tanks, as they'll probably have driven them themselves and they'll understand what their weaknesses are and when to take them out. And so the game balance could shift up significantly a couple weeks or a couple months after launch. So there's a lot of theoretical balance based on what the player population could be like. And I really do hope that could solve the tank versus infantry dynamic, or perhaps the perceived tank versus infantry dynamic. Now, another area of discussion that I want to revisit is the point allocation for capturing flags in the Conquest game mode. I did a whole video on this about a week ago. It got a lot of attention, a lot of people talking about it and sort of the game balance elements and how this was going to affect gameplay. And if you haven't seen that video, to summarize basically what DICE has done is they've made capturing points in Conquest worth a huge amount of points. You can get 1,400 plus points just for capturing a single flag in Conquest. That's without killing anybody, just getting on the point and staying on that point from start to finish of that capture sequence. You could be solo capping, or you could be one of 10 different players there. You're all going to get that huge point bonus, which is designed to encourage playing the objective. You know, we always talk about PTFO. You got to play the objective to win the game. The winning bonus in Battlefield 1 is huge. They don't really emphasize it that well in the game yet, so I don't think a lot of people understand just how many extra points you get for winning the game. But basically, DICE is trying to get players to play the objective and win the game, and by putting a huge point allocation on the flag is basically one of their main plans to do so. And a lot of people who are arguing for this system said that this is going to be great because people will stop sniping from across the map and camping spawns and doing all these kind of cheesy Battlefield tactics that have existed in previous games. And what I've noticed from playing the beta so far is that we still see a ton of snipers sniping from long range. I've had Conquest games where I go up to that arch rock and there's like 5 or 6 snipers just sitting there sniping people from across the map. They're not on any flag, they're just trying to get long range kills. And I can't really blame them because Battlefield has always offered some of the best long range sniping in any multiplayer game. I can't think of any other game out there actually that offers the same sort of PvP sniping experience. And there's always going to be players who want to do that and want to play the game that way, and I really don't think that should be taken away from them. But at the same time, no matter what DICE does to the point system or winning bonus or anything like that, it's not going to stop people from playing Battlefield the way that is fun to them. There's always going to be a significant portion of the population that doesn't care about the scoreboard, doesn't care about the points, or even the way that the game mode is set up. So this huge overhaul to the point system and big emphasis on squad orders and points that you get from like marking objectives before you capture them and stuff, I don't think it's actually really changing much about the way that the game is played. Tactical players are already going to be playing the game tactically. This huge point system around certain ways of playing is really only serving to limit the ways that you can play the objective, and making it so that people who really like to play the objective and see themselves up on the scoreboard for PTFOing are being limited in the way that they play. And that's really kind of hurt my play style a lot, and it's been very frustrating for me, especially in certain examples where I've gone onto a point, cleared off most of the players there, one guy starts to run away, I go and chase him down to try and wipe the squad so that they can't respawn on him, and while I'm chasing him down, my team caps the point and they get way more points than I did, even though I did pretty much all the work in clearing off the point and getting the enemies off of there. All they did was stand on the stinking flag after I was there, and they get more points than I do, and I don't like that. You know, I think if you're going to have a scoreboard in a game, then it should be a good representation of who is playing the game mode the best and playing the objective the best. Otherwise, get rid of the damn scoreboard. I think it's actually pretty crazy how much Conquest has changed from what it used to be. In fact, aside from the fact that it's a big game mode with lots of infantry and vehicles fighting over flags, there's nothing the same about the way the point system or the scoring system works compared to the old game. I mean, you used to be able to actually neutralize ticket bleed by controlling more flags than the enemy team, which was a huge thing. It allowed teams to come back in crazy close games. Now coming back in a Conquest game is nearly impossible if one team's ahead, and you can't have these epic moments that I was so fond of in previous Battlefield games. Sometimes me and the squad up crew would join a game and we'd be able to bring a team back from near brink to win the game at the end of the day. And those were really cool moments, but that's not really going to happen in this game, because once somebody has a significant enough lead, all you have to do is control 2 or 3 of the flag points for the rest of the time limit, and you will be guaranteed to win the match regardless. Where in the old system, you could actually stop the ticket burn for one team, and that would allow you to come back if you maintained dominance of the map the whole time. And so not having that system anymore is also a huge change up in the way that Conquest plays out. Now, although I'm pretty darn certain of what I want Conquest to be in the final release of Battlefield 1, there was one point I made a while ago that I think I'll backpedal on a little bit, and that was ultimately that aircraft couldn't really contribute much to the ground battle. Now, with the new loadouts of the airplanes and the tank hunter loadout and the fighter bomber loadout, there's a lot you can do to really contribute to the ground forces, but you have to absolutely focus on vehicles. In previous Battlefield games, you could take out a lot of infantry, especially in the attack helicopter. You could absolutely shut down entire infantry pushes. It's not as effective as a tactic with the aircraft in this game now. The bomber can kind of do it, but then again, the bomber is also very vulnerable to so many things. The tank hunter aircraft is actually quite good at taking out land vehicles. It can't like single strafe tanks or anything like that. In fact, you might have seen earlier in the video, I had to like take 3 or 4, maybe even 6 passes on a heavy tank to deal with one, but you get a huge amount of points for taking out armor in this game now, and that's one way to put you up on the scoreboard. Now, of course, a lot of this is due to the point balance system, and it seems like DICE has done a slightly better job of trying to balance out aircraft so that they can make their impact on the scoreboard and sort of represent their contribution, which is tank busters, basically taking out armor or taking out other aircraft. Anyway, as the beta comes to an end, I'll be giving you guys final thoughts on the beta, my overview opinion. There's a huge amount of information in this new game, a huge amount of new balance changes and tweaks. It's really fun to get into. I'm enjoying the beta a lot as it stands, and I cannot wait for the final release of the game. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.